folks. My name is Greg Watchalhausen. I'm with Grand Classroom. I'm actually a former classroom teacher and travel leader in the school that I worked in for many, many years. I have 15 plus years of Grand Classroom trips under my belt as a teacher coordinator and in this capacity as a travel consultant and direct partner with the schools I work with throughout New England. It's been 6 or 7 years, depending on if you count the non-functioning years that we have just emerged from. And we're at Grand Classroom thrilled to be here and supporting travel at Notre Dame again. Matt and I had an opportunity to connect years ago, actually. I think 5 years ago, maybe? Yeah, and the idea of the birth of this NDXL experiential learning opportunity was just formulating at the time that we met. We were able to support travel in one of the early years of the programming. We've kept in touch over the years through these last few pandemic years and have been staged and ready to go with travel full blown. I want to tell you a little bit about Grand Classroom for those of you who didn't attend our virtual presentation in the spring. We're a small business. We are based down in Charlottesville, Virginia. I am based out of Boston. I am Grand Classroom New England power of one, I like to say, so I get to be a single point person for issues all along the way that the school needs in preparation for the trip as the young men of school are getting ready to head off to Italy or down to DC. I am on call for the teachers as they need for prep and presentation and supporting in-person capacity. We also have a partner that's based in our Charlottesville offices. Her name is Iris. She is our account manager, and she is working directly with the teachers and with families in support of the development and the logistics aspects of these trips. So those are two big names those are two significant names in our story that you will be coming across on a need basis as we go. Grand Classroom travels all over the world. We've been at this for 20 years now, and being a small business in our model, we are able to build that intimate experience with our school partners rather than them just picking a trip out of the catalog. We have all the tools to help them build their trips from the ground up. My role tonight is to talk about the company, to answer some logistical questions, some financing questions, and some things that you might need to know about the trip. But because these trips were built by the teachers, by Grand Classroom, I get to step back and let the teachers kind of share their vision of travel. These are original itineraries that are designed exclusively for this program. And as we go through and the teachers bring their components in, part of Grand Classroom's role is to be certain that the itinerary and the product and the travel experience are reflective of school goals, your NDXL course goals, and the credit that is earned and all the prep along the way. So my role as a former classroom teacher, an experiential educator, someone who did a career change to help schools plan authentic and intentional itineraries, is to be that quality control for the process to make sure travel goals are reflected between the school and the trip that happens. We go all over the world. Italy we've been doing for a number of years, and one of the things that I really like about our Europe trips is that we are working in partnership with local guides, so the experience is super authentic. Your teacher leaders for this trip, they know what they want out of this trip, and it's our job to make sure we're carrying those local guides throughout the experience with them, making sure everything's set up and ready to go on the front end. So that's a bit about Grand Classroom. I will hop back up here and answer some more logistical and finance related questions a little later in the evening, but for now I'll turn it over to Doc. Here he is. All right. And I've got my general overview here, but I think you have your own thing, so we'll come back to this.
All right.
Take it away.
So where's Mr. Millen, right? Come use this one off. Over there. Oh, very good. Thank you. Good touch. Thank you. All right. All right. Good evening, everybody. Coach Wood told me don't linger because he needs to get home. So I'm ever since he hit 50, bedtime is pre-9 o'clock. So, NDXL Italy Adventure. Well, be heading out in March. I know several people here are hockey families. I know that falls right in line with states. We're working on it. I think, Greg, we should probably talk about abilities to put down deposits and the
Talk all
travel
through that.
insurance, all that. Yeah, all right, fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right. So, press the button. No. That's fine.
Yeah. And we will click it back in front here.
Which
Down. Right? Hey there.
Hey.
There.
Hey, all right. Day one is very easy. We fly overnight. A nice long trip, and if we're lucky, all of your sons will look something like that. So, primary thing to put into your any travel kit, Benadryl. The old Benadryl cocktail is a favorite of mine. Get you through that overnight flight. Here, the second day, when we arrive, we'll land in Rome, and then we will take the bus from Rome down towards Naples. And on the way, we'll stop at the Abbey of Monte Cassino. My wife was looking over this, changing all of my photos, because she told me I picked all these grainy ones. And she said, "Did you say hit the Abbey of Monte Cassino? Is that meant to be a pun?" I said, "It wasn't, but if you know your World War II history, apparently it is." So we will see the reconstructed Abbey of Monte Cassino that our beloved allies laid to the rubble during the war. But this is the view looking out just from one of the main areas in the place. It's gorgeous. It's just a gorgeous way to kind of introduce everyone to the country. La Bella Paese, as they say, the beautiful country. So we'll get that, and then we will continue down to make our way to Napoli. I like to call it La Vecchia New Haven, or Old New Haven, because some of you who were there in the spring, the Italians look very different from Italians here. Very, very different, except in Naples. Walk down the main road of Naples, and they look just like everybody here. They could be everybody's cousin or father, grandmother. In fact, I think I tried to hug a woman in the street once, and she was not having it. But you know, somebody sworn we were related. And we will eat Neapolitan pizza, the best kind. A little different from Pepe's, but you know, all part of the cultural experience. Day 3 will start our kind of journey through ancient Italy. Part of the organization of this is to work our way from ancient to medieval to Renaissance Italy, to kind of get the full feel for the origins of the Italian culture, how it blossomed, and it sort of rebirths as time went on. There is a focus. Greg Classroom is very accommodating with us, trying to come up with a way that this is not just a whirlwind, check off your box of seeing all the fancy things, wake up in Venice, hit lunch in Pisa, be in Florence, buy dinner. It's like, that's all nice, but you forget pretty much most of it. So this will have some sort of actual, logic to it. Pompeii and Herculaneum. Pompeii, of course, as everyone knows, hopefully knows, in the shadow of the beautiful Mount Vesuvius. And Herculaneum, if you're familiar with it, is the other major ancient site that was preserved. And it's actually in some ways more interesting than Pompeii. My wife, the art historian, was informing me of this last night. Pompeii was covered in ash, or covered in lava, so it was preserved one way, whereas I think Herculaneum was covered in rock, or gas like turned to rock. So while they dug out Pompeii, they chipped away at Herculaneum to find it. And in some ways, like I said, it gets us a somewhat more full view of what an ancient city would look like. Put the two of them together, and they're really quite a spectacular experience. Just to literally walk on the streets that the ancients walked, to see their houses, see the bars and the taverns. They had fast food. This was just recently discovered, that you could literally go into a shop and get food out of a container. They found all the remnants of it. It's really quite impressive. We will head off to the Archaeological Museum, because here's the funny thing about Pompeii and Herculaneum. The places themselves are wonderful to see, the buildings, to see the sites, but there's almost nothing left in them. Because, well before the invention of modern archaeology, ancient sites were just considered places to steal from. And so all of it pretty much ended in the Archaeological Museum, and there they'll be able to see things that show up in probably every textbook you can imagine. They have it there. And just because I can't resist, in addition to the actual Archaeological Museum, one of the favorite spots, the most famous spots, is the Gabinetto Segreto, the secret cabinet, in which all of the Romans glued art makes it. For those of you who are having a difficult time, that's the god Pan and a goat. What they're doing, I'll leave up to your imaginations. But we won't dwell too on it. There are children here after all. Day 4, we will make our way finally to Rome. And that first day is just a day to kind of explore the city. We'll make our way through. The guys will have some free time just to see, everything we can. Trevi Fountain is just one of the most beautiful spots. They just remodeled it actually while I was living there, and they cleaned it up rather nicely. Really quite impressive. At night, it's really spectacular to see. The Pantheon, considered by we have an architect friend who said it's probably the most perfect and most beautiful building that he's ever encountered in the world. And how many of them are curious in the room? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Lovely. And then, of course, just a view of the city itself. With the monument to Vittorio Emanuele III, often the Italians call it either the birthday cake or the typewriter, is the way it stands out in the city. But there's actually a really fascinating museum underneath about the Italian immigration experience, where, like so many around here, they have the old classic New Haven mix of either Italian, Irish, or Polish, especially the Italian. You can find pretty much records in there. It's really fascinating. Day 5, you cannot go to Rome and not go to the Vatican. And right now, Grand Classroom is accommodating, they're looking into, and we are Notre Dame after all, and hopefully we should be able to get into a mass while we're at the Vatican, get that full experience. But we will tour the Vatican itself, and we will make its way through the museums. Really quite a spectacular experience. A full day, but a good day. Day 5 is actually quite full. So the Vatican in the morning in the museums, and then in the afternoon we will hit the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, the ancient marketplace, and the Palatine Hill. They're the Flavian palace that was built under the emperors, the Flavians. Who was that again? I should know this. I'm a Latin teacher. What's it? Titus Domitian. Titus Domitian and Vespasian. So the Palatine Hill being where most of the Roman elite lived, and a lot of the grandeur of their palaces remain. The Forum itself, to me, is probably one of my favorite spots. You see the old Roman Curia, the spot where Julius Caesar was killed. It's all there. And the Vatican, and the Forum itself, actually, what's really cool about it is during the Middle Ages, right before the Renaissance, it was actually all filled in. It was a cow pasture. We have etchings from the Middle Ages in which cows grazed there. That was what it was. And one of the great things about ancient meeting modern, the current Forum, after it was dug out, right now there's a large road that cuts down the middle, put in by Mussolini, leading down to the Colosseum, in a way to try to link his fascist Italy with the ancients. Sadly, not sadly, did not last as long as probably for the best. The Colosseum, really cool to see. Can't wait to go. Home now to many, many, many cats, and my wife in her younger, more impetuous years could not resist touching them. I told her, please don't touch me for the rest of the vacation. I couldn't touch them. Day 6, we take a day trip up to Florence. We'll take the train up, we'll go up in the morning, we'll spend the day there, we'll have time to walk around the city. We will get to see Michelangelo's David in the Academia. Again, for those who have been, the experience is really quite unlike any. It's housed in this beautiful dome, and you literally walk through the doors, and a line of stone, uncarved statues leads the way up to the David. It's just quite spectacular. We've got our Duomo, Piazza Signoria. It's the original home for the David, actually. One of the kind of cool things is the feet and hands are ridiculously large because it was meant to actually be put on this building and to be seen from the ground. But when they finished it, it was just deemed too beautiful, and they refused to put it up there, so it stood in the piazza for a while. And then of course acid rain came along, so they had to move it. So there's like a cheap copy that sits there now, and of course you have to pay money to go to the real thing. My wife told me I'm not allowed to put the Fiorentina, the steak of Fiorentina, Florence steak. So there's no way you're feeding kids that. Yeah, are you kidding me? Each one is made for two. I've got high school guys. Each one of them can eat one by themselves. So, all there in all glories. And then, sadly, we do have to come back. So, the worst part of any vacation. Returning. But Mr. Milano, in a wonderful move, taking into consideration the reality, has granted us that when we do come back, we will get a jet lag day. So we'll fly home Monday, and we get Tuesday to catch up on our Z's. I know. So you can sleep 24 hours instead of the usual 12 or 16. I'm jealous. I wish I could do it. I can't do it anymore. And that will basically take us through. Little whirlwind. Try to keep it, Mr. Lupo, we do it all right?
Excellent.
All right. And I'm happy to take any itinerary questions and very grateful logistic questions. Get back to it and if you need to.
What's the weather like there that time of year?
March is actually a fun kind of time to go. It can be. Naples will be warm.
So sweatshirt type of,
Sweatshirt, yeah, layers. If you pack layers, you'll be good. It's nothing bad. It's probably equivalent to our late April here, something like that. Yeah, sweatshirt, some pants, you should be good. Yeah.
I missed the first meeting, so for that, I'm sorry.
No,
but
no.
What are the hotel accommodations like? Are the boys sharing rooms? How many to a room?
And over there, the room configurations are a bit different, so we do anticipate on this trip that it would be one per bed. Depending on the final numbers, as we develop the flow of the itinerary, we establish those hotels, and they would be business class hotels. We wouldn't be doing anything in this circumstance that is anything less than having all amenities met and comfortable. As we get our numbers, that's kind of the next step for us, for the hotel function.
How about the chaperones, sorry? How many chaperones are per child or?
So we have a 10-to-1 ratio.
10-to-1.
So that's what's budgeted in currently. If we get up to more than 20, then we'll have another one that will get back in.
And in addition to that, Grand Classroom provides the full-time guide service, so they're there 24/7, they're in the hotels, they're making the logistical arrangements. Because very clearly, we have a teacher leader here who could do the whole thing himself. And I'm gonna provide you with the guide services, because there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to worry about, and then you can just kind of wax this type of presentation throughout your entire trip. I mean, it's inspiring for me. I work with teachers who pick up, a trip out of a catalog and say, I've never been there, let's go.
Okay.
And then I have people who are clearly quite authorities. It's really great to work with. So this is going to be quite an exceptional experience on the school end and on the itinerary end for our half of things as well. So it's just going to be a special trip.
I look forward to it very much.
I'm trying to get, once in a while, Grand Classroom will say, hey, Greg, any trips you want to tag along on this year? I got one in mind.
We love that.
Yeah, so anyway, but you would have a local guide full-time, in addition to the teacher leaders that would be on the trip.
I do have one quick question. So the boys don't see too much of the Italian nightlife. Do you guys do like tape on the door? Cause they're
It's a simple solution, but it works.
Is that what you, okay.
Well, we in the US, a lot of the times we'll arrange night security and whatnot.
Okay.
It's a little bit different in Europe.
Uh-huh.
And if possible, at each location, we would be working to arrange that extra coverage, but it really varies from property to property. Sometimes any kind of out of property additional security isn't allowed beyond the front desk. The rules are a little bit different over there. So they would have their guide that's there all the time. They would have their teacher leadership guaranteed, and if possible, to arrange extra if necessary. We can further discuss that.
And from a school standpoint, we're definitely gonna collaborate on what we would like to see. But just so you all know, this is not by any means the first time Norway High School's gone to Italy.
Yeah, true.
Right, so when we were students, it was every single year. So there is a tried and true method to go to Italy and doing it safely. And we're gonna talk to those teachers, we're still very familiar with them, and see what worked for them and what kind of tips they have.
And
So.
between jet lag and the itinerary, they're gonna hit those beds hard.
Okay, that's good.
And honestly, if I can just sit in the hallway with a bottle of wine and just tell them to get back in their room, I'll do that too. Yeah.
Are we doing a shoot down on the buildings?
Oh, yeah, of course. Come on, I'm not gonna drag you across the Atlantic here, force you to room some people in a room. Don't worry, we won't do it.
Yep. And the way that all works on our end is, as we get our properties established, we know our bed configurations and whatnot, then we'll advise you property by property what space is available, and you in turn will work with the student group and tell us, and we'll have it all ready to go upon arrival.
Okay, so you may have touched on this, but I was just curious as to, you're going to Italy this year. What is the next three? My son's only a freshman.
Oh, right.
Like, what other opportunities may be in his horizon so I can, pick and choose, because I don't know that I can send him every year.
No, fair question. And Ms. Milano, I think can speak for that.
So, Italy was really one of the last trips that we were like, let's definitely make sure that's on the list. Within the next 2 months or so, we're gonna have teachers be basically proposing their courses, and one of the things that's currently in the works is how do we plan for even teachers to kind of reserve their opportunity to go and travel and host a trip like this. So at this point, there's some ideas kind of floating around. I know Egypt has been kind of thrown in the loop. I know that there's a very kind of special smaller trip to Uganda to go see one of our sister schools that Notre Dame has never visited before. That's in the works. So if those are kind of coming to mind. I know Spain was a hit, so Spain could be a potential in the next 3 years as well. So the goal is to do one domestic trip and one international trip each year. I led a trip to the Grand Canyon, which was overwhelmingly successful, and Washington D.C. is something that we've done for years, and so it always seems to be another trip as well that's pretty successful. So to see maybe a collection of those over the next couple of years is a good thought, but if there's other ideas that teachers and students bring up within this year, in 3 years, we can potentially see it. So if you have any ideas, please reach out.
Probably worth mentioning, Italy probably will not happen again while your son's
That's
at
what I was
school.
gonna ask.
Yes.
So that's what I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
and I think that's pretty much.
So yeah,
I mean, we were just there in August.
Ah, fair enough, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, for the next, exactly.
yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Thank you.
Of course. Other questions?
If you are gonna go on the Italy trip, and you don't have a passport, you need to get on that now, because it takes like 3 or 4 months, that's my understanding.
Oh,
You should
yeah,
pay
oh,
that.
thank you, Mr. President.
So,
Exactly.
it takes a while to get, you need a passport, obviously, so.
Yes, sir.
I'm not familiar with the Europe travel rules, you have to be vaccinated.
That's a good question.
There are no remaining. there are
Oh, yeah, they've lifted, I think, all of
regulations, and any rules established are by the school.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's free and clear to go.
How about deposits and stuff? Does that happen online? Does it happen with a check? Or?
It does, Greg can speak
Yeah,
to that
talk
more,
about
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. So let's talk financing and the trip and how to get signed up and everything that's related. We do take care of all the financing on our end. These are considered enrichment trips rather than trips that are designed for full class size trips. So we do handle that financing. It's done through our website. We require a $99 deposit to hold a seat, and then you can set up a payment plan based on our trip cost. This is based on 20 students. This trip already has 17 enrolled, which is very exciting. One of the reasons we decided to roll it out in the spring was for families that were interested. We are not capped at 20. I don't want to overstep my bounds there, so you guys can kind of talk about that, but this is happening. There are enough people to travel. So I would defer to both of you in terms of limitations on numbers that you're comfortable with, but we do have that 1 to 10 ratio, so to jump from 20 to 30 brings another teacher along, making sure the coverage is complete, depending on how it all plays out. So again, you guys can discuss and advise me on that. These are all inclusive prices. The only thing that they need is souvenir money, and everything from food allotments, where if there's an opportunity for them to go and get their own meals, we'll have the cash on hand already exchanged and ready to go for them, which is a tremendous experience for them in a foreign country, of course. Our emergency on-call 24/7 support, access to telehealth services, US-based and locally. As I said, we do have local partners and providers that work with this, so that's all part of it. All activities that we agree upon on the final itinerary, all admissions, everything is included in the price. Europe travel in general is noticeably more expensive since before the pandemic, and we acknowledge that. So one of the main things is we have really a minimal deposit for families to be able to get on board and to set up a payment plan. Payments are due for travel 95 days before travel, and that is at the, we're bending at the will of the group ticketing for the airlines. So it's not a tremendously long amount of time to set up the payments, but we can set up custom plans that work for you. As long as you communicate with us, we can design a plan, or you can design a plan with your personalized account manager that works for you. If you would like to sign up through our website, that is our preference. You have the options to pay by direct checking withdrawal, which is fee-free. You can pay by credit card, and you can give us a call and set up a custom plan, like I said, that works for you. And as long as you're communicating with us, we can be flexible with plans that work for you. Only thing that is worth mentioning, not included, comes up with the trip protection plans. We do offer options for families to add any kind of travel refund protection programs if they choose to. We don't make it mandatory, and one of the most important things that we learned is best for our traveling customers as they reinvest into travel in general, is to have options. As you register, Grand Classroom will offer you additional protection plans, which could protect for student withdrawal up to a week or 24 hours before travel, depending on the category of additional trip protection you may want. There are some restrictions to one of the plans that quarantine, illness, acts of God, civil unrest, and whatnot. It's a very standardized travel insurance protection plan. We also have one that we had designed through the pandemic that allows for withdrawal to 24 hours for any reason. And the refund that would come back to you would be minus the cost of the initial deposit and the cost of the program that you chose to enroll in. Depending on how close you are to the trip, any non-refundable fees such as credit card processing fees. If it's absolute last minute and we can't get a refund on, say, an airline ticket, we would work with the family to make sure that airline credit is in your hands so you're compensated as best as possible. And that would be for any of our plans. So when you go to register, you'll have an option to enroll in additional protection, either the up to 24 hours before travel withdrawal or up to a week before withdrawal with some exception. And you can also put the deposit down, set up your payments, and then you have a window of a month to decide if you want to add additional packages as well. And I don't anticipate that an additional month is going to sync up with sports schedules, unfortunately, and you mentioned that. That just is another reason to add travel protections if you choose to. And I think at this point, post-pandemic, if we can use that word comfortably, we're quite confident that the trip will travel. We know we're going to have enough students. We likely may have a higher enrollment than anticipated, which would allow us to rework costs if it was oversubscribed, which is excellent. And then any changes that would be reflected in individual financing, that's done with between you directly and your account manager. You'll go to grandclassroom.com and set up an account. You'll set up a username and password, and you'll have your financing portal there that you can access and see all types of options and itemized methods. And I'm taking a little extra time on this, just because I will not have to have the same explanation when we talk about DC. But this trip is up, it's running, all inclusive, with added travel protection options, and we're good to go.
One quick thing, private health insurance, like from the United States,
Mhm.
doesn't carry over to Italy, correct? So God forbid something happens,
Right.
that's covered under that.
That is covered under our package, and
Okay.
we do have the additional healthcare insurance that is relative to each of our destinations.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
that's
Thank
part
you.
of it.
That's
If
very-
a student needs the medical services in country,
Well,
they,
God forbid.
of
That
course,
just
but,
scares me.
but that's also the reality of, you know,
Of course.
you could trip on the sidewalk
Right.
here, you could trip on the sidewalk there, you know?
Yep.
And you get it. So yes, that is all planned for, prepared for, and vetted and reputable healthcare providers in country. Yes, yes. So that's Italy. Any, how to register, just really quick, and this will apply for both the trips. grandclassroom.com, we have the paperwork available, the QR code will take you directly to the registration website. You can set up an account, put a deposit down if you're interested, and then from there, our system will set up, offer you some payment options. If you want something custom, you have contact information, you give our offices a call. Talk to the same individual you'll talk to every single time you're talking about the Italy or the DC trip, and that person can work with you to set up a custom plan. Yep, so scan of the QR and good to go. Yep.
Not to be like, I don't know, with COVID, I just want, like, what happens if one of them gets COVID? Like, what happens if
No,
my
this is
child gets
great
COVID while
question.
they're there?
Great question,
Or-
and I will, not in a scary way at all, we've dealt with this multiple times on trips. We've been traveling successfully since March 2021, getting back into things. So we have protocols, contingency plans, in country and out of country. In the case that a student does fall ill and need to quarantine, Grand Classroom fits that bill. And for the teacher who has to stay behind for extra time in Italy with that student. Now, I'm not gonna fit the wine bill that goes along with it, but yes, so we will take care of that, you're all set. Depending on the circumstances and the length of quarantine time, arrangements will be made between the family and the company to get you over there to get them home. Those flights, however, are not part of it. I have to be fully transparent with that, but we will work with you to make sure you are satisfied with accommodation, everything they need while they're there, and help come up with an extraction plan to get the child home, saying that the trip has left and the child is still there. We've been dealing with it for a year in the travel world now. We know what we're doing even internationally. And I will say our international trips have been up and running for a number of months, both in Europe and other parts of the world. And our model that we established with domestic travel does translate internationally quite successfully. We are prepared for that, and I'm glad you asked. I wasn't gonna say it, but I'm glad you asked.
And you
You
know,
can just see it happening, that's all.
if it's more cost effective, I would bite the bullet and take the 2-week ship home.
I know some days it-
That's what I do.
Is it 20-day quarantine now?
Yeah, something, yeah. We'll get back in time for graduation.
But I think with all of our major destinations, we're talking about parts of the world that, just like us, are rolling with this and good to deal with it. Yeah, we're in a very good spot. Yeah.
Are there any testing requirements? Like,
There is testing before departure, and then depending on where we are for return home, I don't know what the US entry requirements are post this summer. I think it's changed recently, but we would help you arrange that if that was the case for re-entry. Yeah.
so currently,
But-
right now, you have to test to get into Italy?
Yes. Yes, but vaccination is not required in Italy.
And hypothetically, if one of our sons tested positive, even if they were asymptomatic,
Yep,
they would not be able to go
correct,
unless they had the insurance.
correct.
And even if we bought the insurance the 1 week before, that wouldn't apply, because you're sure you're gonna test this within a week.
But that is a hypothetical.
So
scenario.
hypothetically, even if they're asymptomatic, if they test positive, we'd just be out of money, is that correct?
Unless you had that highest level of insurance protection in that specific scenario, that would be the case.
Okay, thanks.
we don't have a special arrangement with the school for those exceptions. Yep. Yep.
Is your testing required by Grand Classroom?
No.
It's not required by Italy right now.
Oh, it's not, upon departure? Well, then I'm behind in my updates, that's
Because
great.
you were just there. so-
Okay, well, there we go, all right, thank you.
You're good.
More recent information than I have, I appreciate it, thank you,
Just
thank you. Then that's great information. So, sir, your question is, still a very valid one, but we're good to go.
Yeah, and any questions that come up, please feel free to contact me.
It's all,
Yeah.
it's changing so fast and at different rates all over, so.
Thank you,
All
everybody.
right, thank you very much, and have a great night. Feel free to contact myself or anybody here, all right? And feel free to stay for the Washington DC meeting, which is gonna start right now.
Yeah, yeah.